everybody, today for you I'm going to demonstrate scratch-made puff pastry. Now puff pastry is that many layer light pastry that puffs up about 6 times its size when you bake it in the oven, and it's used for all different kind of pastries, sweet pastries such as Napoleons, or to top a savory dish like a chicken pot pie. And being able to make an excellent puff pastry is a sign of any advanced baker. So you only need 4 ingredients to make scratch-made puff pastry, which makes it ideal. It's not very expensive to make. We're going to start off with the first 3 ingredients. 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of regular granulated salt, and to this, I need to add 2/3 of a cup of ice water. I'm going to add the ice water in a little bit at a time to make a particular dough that's called, French call it anyway, the détrempé. The détrempé then will have a lock-in of butter and will be folded and turned in such a way that we'll get all of these wonderful flaky laminated layers. Okay, so I'm going to start by mixing in my salt into my flour. And just make a little well in the center. Now you can do this right out on your countertop like you might do like fresh pasta, but I'm gonna use a bowl just to kind of confine my mess because I'm a bit of a sloppy baker. Alrighty. Now I've chilled cold water with some ice cubes because I want it super cold to work with it. And I'm gonna pour in the 2/3 of a cup of water at this point. There we go. And just set aside the rest of it. And I'm gonna add the water in a tablespoon at a time to start. I don't want to overdo it. I may not need all of the water that's here. All right, that was 1 tablespoon, and keeping that same well. And just repeating this process. Now I'm going to add 2 tablespoons. Just doing this a little bit at a time. And really just till I bring it together. And it's likely, because this is late March, that given the very ambient temperature and conditions in the room, that is, it's not terribly humid in here, I'm probably going to use all of this water. And in some cases, you may need to even add an extra tablespoon. You can see it's really beginning to come together now. They say patience is a virtue, and that's definitely true for laminated doughs. You put a lot of effort in the beginning, and what you get out at the end is something really special. Okay, and I'm going to add the last of that water because it really does need it. Again, if this was hot, steamy July, I might have a little bit of a different experience with this, but because it's very dry this time of March, I'm going to need all of that water. And you could really be mixing this in with your hands. It's just that I don't want to have to keep running to the sink. I've washed my hands before I got started, but to be trying to do the video, it makes it a little bit challenging, and you find that you get those big gummy pieces on each of your digits. So I'm going to start with the rubber scraper. I'm going to just work the rest of it in now by hand because it's a little bit drier. Now, it's not going to look like a whole lot of anything at this point. In fact, it's kind of just like a coarse, crumbly little bit of a mass. So I'm going to bring it together, and then it's going to get wrapped in wax paper and refrigerated for 30 minutes. And during that 30 minutes, it's going to get nice and cool because we want it to be cool for the butter, for the lock-in. And also, it's going to allow the gluten that has now developed from my hand kneading and stirring for it to relax and be ready for me to do my turns. You can see I've just about gotten all of the crumbs incorporated into it. And I think I'm going to give it just a few gentle kneads on the countertop at this point, just to smooth it out. And again, it's going to seem coarse and crumbly. Don't be alarmed. That's perfectly normal at this stage. You're going to see where, as we do the turns, that it's going to get much smoother and develop the right consistency you expect to have it for a delicate pastry. All right, that's where I'm going to stop. Okay. At this point, I'm going to put it in wax paper, chill it for 30 minutes. All right, so while a de trempe is chilling for 30 minutes and relaxing in the refrigerator, we need to make the butter block. The butter block is what's going to be locked in and then ultimately rolled in the many different turns and folds of the dough to get that laminated layers throughout. So here's how you're going to do it. You need a half a pound of butter. That's 2 sticks of unsalted butter. You want to let it come up to room temperature so that you can work with it. And again, we're about 72 degrees in here today. It's the end of March, so it's pretty ambient temperatures. If you're doing this like late January and it's chilly in the house, you may have to let it sit out longer or give it like maybe 10 or 15 second intervals in the microwave to soften it just enough that it becomes what we call pliable, flexible in use, because we're going to see how having a butter block that has plasticity is going to be very important to the process. All right, so I have my butter here and I've just kind of broken it up a bit, gotten it started. And I have a tablespoon of all-purpose flour I need to add in. I'm going to add it in at about a teaspoon at a time. With this, it's just a lot of fussy little steps. Instead of dumping everything in at one time, we're going to add things in a little bit more gradually so that we're really setting a good foundation for the puff pastry by having the right mise en place that we need. Okay, that is incorporated. I'm going to add another teaspoon. All right, and then finally, the last teaspoon of my tablespoon of all-purpose flour. So it's completely together, and at this point I need to make a little square really. It's soft now, but as it refrigerates, it'll get nice and hard for us to do the lock-in stage of the lamination. So I'm going to use a little bit of wax paper. If you have parchment paper at home, that'll work as well, but you really need plastic wrap or something to kind of wrap it into. Now I have my trusty 1 foot ruler, and I want to do a 4 by 4 inch butter block. So I'm going to leave this here. In fact, I'm going to put it underneath the wax paper just as kind of a guide for me. And this is going to require a little bit of shaping and a little bit of finesse. But again, the time you take now is all the better the product will be in the end. And again, you know me, I'm getting every last little speck out of the bowl that I can. I'm not going to waste anything if I can help it. Alrighty, then using the paper itself to kind of press it into the shape I need. I want it to be square as much as possible. But again, it's not going to be perfect. So I'm looking for 4 inches. Not quite there yet. It's still looking a little bit shabby. Look here. So that's just about 4 inches. I'm going to go a little bit more. 4 inches, just a little bit over 4 inches. So I'm going to push it in a little bit. You can see how the paper helps you to shape it into this nice little square that you want to have. All right. Again, I'm going to move out there. So there's 4 inches that way and just 4 inches this way. Okay. So I've got it about as good as I'm going to get it. It's not going to be perfect, but we're going to try to make it as square as possible. At this point, I'm just gonna finish wrapping it up in the paper, and I'm gonna refrigerate it for 10 minutes before I use it for the lock-in on my détrempé. Okay, so my détrempé has been resting and refrigerating for 30 minutes, and my lock-in butter block has been refrigerating about 10 minutes. So I've got them both out now to work with them. I wanna start by getting the lock in. I wanna get that butter block locked into this before I start doing my turns. So I want to get this into a 7-inch square. So again, like I always tell people when we're working with doughs, if you want a round one, start with a round shape. If you want to end with a rectangular or a square, be sure to be fussing with those corners as you're going. And I have my ruler here. So we're gonna go 7 by 7. A little bit larger than I need. I'm gonna shrink it up, and again, I'm gonna pay attention to trying to make it square. So there's 7 that way, and there's 7 that way. Try to pull those corners. And this is gonna be all the more important. In just a moment, you're gonna see when we lock in the butter. So I have my butter block. Now, it is chilled just slightly, but it's still what we call flexible and pliable. It has the ability to be, have plasticity, right? The ability to make it move a little bit. So keep that in mind. You don't want it to be a rock hard solid piece of butter at this point. And we're going to, we have 4 corners here. We want to do it in the reverse here. So we're going to put it down, even though it's a square, we're going to put it down like diamond shaped on top. Got it a little bit off center. Okay. Alrighty. And I need to totally package it up, conceal it, lock it into the détrempé, into the dough itself. So we're going to bring the pieces together to the center. And as we go, we're going to pinch it along the seams. Each way, we're going to pinch it, and we're going to make like a little tiny little cute package out of it. It may resist this process at times. You'll see it starting to pull away from itself. Don't worry, because all the turns and folds are going to help laminate the dough. So if it squeezes out a little bit, we're going to be fine. You have some extra flour at the ready at all times for when you're working with your dough. All right, so I've locked it in, right? That stage was called lock-in, because I've locked the butter into the dough. At this point, I want to start doing my first turn, okay? Adjusting my work surface here, make sure I have some flour down. Turn it seam side down, okay? And you can see it's soft, it's flexible, right? I want to now make it 12 inches by 6 inches. So 6 inches is going to be parallel with my belly. So a little bit of extra flour, if I need a little extra underneath. And don't panic if some of the butter squeezes out, but do roll it nice and easy. Don't press super hard. Be gentle with it. All right. So 6 inches is pretty easy. Getting that 12 is a little bit more tricky. All right. And again, I want to be pulling at those corners a bit to try to maintain that shape if I can, because I want it to be a rectangle. And I've got a little bit of an air bubble in there too. Don't be too concerned about that. That's going to work itself out. Just, it's a little fussy. It's going to be a little fussy for me, so I'm going to have to fuss with it. This dough is what they say, a little extra. It's a little extra. We're getting there. We're almost at the 12 inches. Nice and easy does it. Don't be in a hurry. You can see if I can move it around, it's not stuck down, so that's good news. All right, I've got the 12, and I'm a little bit wider than the 6, so I'm actually gonna pull it a little bit together. You can see I've got a little bit of a blowout on the lock-in butter there, but don't panic. And just squish it back a little bit, reshape it. I've got 12 inches, I've got 6 inches, and I'm just gonna take a little bit of that excess flour off the top because I want it to stick to itself. This dough is going to have 6 full turns of the single fold. So the single fold is that letter fold where we fold it down a third. And then fold it up a third. Right? Trying to keep those corners. Right? Right? And I'm going to give it one more turn. You can see I've had a little bit of a blowout. Don't be concerned. We can just put that back in there. Remember, it is still a little bit soft. We don't want rock hard butter here. Rock hard butter will not have the plasticity required. All right, so you can see I had it this way, I've turned it over onto itself, and I've given it a quarter turn, okay? I'm gonna flour it down good, press it out a bit. I've got some soft butter here, so I don't want it to stick. And again, you can see I'm having a little bit of the butter escaping. Don't worry, I'm just gonna put it back in. And I'm gonna roll it again to 12 by 6. And I've got the 12, I need to come a little bit wider. All right, I'm gonna give it just about 5 minutes to let it relax, and then I'm gonna fold it. All right, I let the gluten relax for just about 5 minutes because it was really pulling and stretching against me. I find that the room's getting a little bit warm now, so I think that for my future turns, I'll probably do just one turn at a time and refrigerate in between. For this first time, I did 2 turns. I'm just gonna give it just the last little bit of rolling that it needs, and then fold it and put it away covered with plastic wrap in the refrigerator for 30 minutes before I do my next turn. All right, so that's gonna be good. I've got 12 inches by 6 inches, and again, take a little bit of the extra off if you need to, and then folding it into thirds towards you and then away from you. Okay, so you have that nice little package, and you can see I'm trying to maintain those corners, right? All right, so at this time, I'm gonna put it on my baking pan. You can really put it on anything. You could stick it on a dinner plate, whatever works for you, but I'm gonna leave it on the sheet pan and cover it with plastic wrap and refrigerate for 30 minutes. When it comes out of the refrigerator after those 30 minutes, I'm going to give it 2 more single folds, 2 more full turns. Put it back into the refrigerator, take it back out again after 30 minutes, and do 2 more single folds, 2 additional full turns. So that's a total of 6 turns. Okay, so I've completed all full 6 turns for my puff pastry. It's nice and well laminated, and I've wrapped it in plastic wrap nice and tight, and I'm gonna refrigerate it overnight or for 24 hours in the refrigerator. So that's gonna end this segment of puff pastry. Look for part 2 of puff pastry, where I show you how to use the fresh made dough for a variety of sweet and savory baked goods. Thanks for joining me.